Hello, Adam. It's been a while.
Howdy, Sam. Yes, it has.
There's been a whole World Cup since the last time I spoke to you.
Yeah, it's true. We haven't spoken since the ball dropped, and now it's dropped no more.
The listeners will know that the last episode we had Ike and Dolo on. I had him on because I didn't want to make you record at 3 a.m. But we did miss you. I hope you enjoyed being a listener for that episode, Adam.
I did. It was great. I got to put out a podcast, but did not have to record a podcast, so that was fantastic.
If only we made money from it.
Yes.
But we love Ike.
Yeah, thank you to Ike for coming on. Always great to hear his take.
We will be referencing that discussion as well because it was overarching with the World Cup. But yes, as Adam mentioned, the World Cup is over. Spain are victorious. Football won, in fact. The evil Argentinians did not lift the trophy despite FIFA's best efforts.
Yeah, that was something that I did not necessarily expect from this World Cup, but was somewhat pleased to see was the anti-Argentina sentiment at this World Cup. And I want to make it clear, that's not from a nationalist perspective. I have no designs over Las Malvinas, but Argentina, I don't know, it's an irritating country. And it's nice to see them taken down a peg in the international World Cup.
It's true, and I have quite a few friends that have done their fair share of traveling around South America and spent quite a lot of time in Buenos Aires. And this World Cup, I was seeing them doing lots of posts saying, "To my Argentinian friends, I love you, I love your country, but your football team is so irritating." I think last World Cup, people, including me, were supporting them a bit because it's that sort of bow on the end of Messi's career. Little did we know he'd just keep going. And that was a great chapter to end on, you know, one of the greats, if not the greatest, winning the World Cup. But then this time you're like, go away.
Yeah, there's that. There were the instances where it really did seem like the game was rigged in Argentina's favor. And that's not Argentina's fault, of course, it's FIFA's. But there was also, I got a sense that people were annoyed because Argentina feels like a very right-wing country.
Yeah.
And I think that irritated people as well. Like when it came down to the semi-finals and the four teams left in it were England, France, Argentina, and Spain. Everyone I knew was like, well, obviously Spain's who we're going to have to root for. There wasn't a lot of debate in that. Spain was the obvious choice for a lot of people there.
Marrying into an English family has been tough in
Sure.
that I can't hate watch England anymore.
Watching England was an interesting experience. I'm not a patriot. I didn't feel particularly strongly about it. But England kept winning despite not playing very well. England was all right in the attack and managed to eke out the goals that they needed.
I feel validated in that they lost because my Arsenal boys were on the bench for some reason. But anyway, that's the football side. One thing that I think both you and I were a big fan of was the underdogs that actually went on a run and made something of this tournament.
Oh, yeah.
DRC making some noise.
Incredible show. Cape Verde, the greatest team in the world, beating the world champions.
Officially, right?
Yeah,
officially,
I think so.
You can't argue it. The only team to not lose in full time to either of the finalists.
Yeah.
So it was pretty great. I was skeptical about an expanded World Cup, but seeing those teams show up really made me glad they were there.
I actually liked the expanded World Cup. I didn't think I would, but I think having those extra teams there and even the tournament just going on a little bit longer was nicer than I expected it to be. I thought it'd be irksome, but I liked it.
It being every 4 years doesn't overstay its welcome. It feels like a really special time. It was rich hearing Europeans and specifically English people complain about the time zone when I've been waking up at 6 a.m. on Sundays to watch Arsenal for the last 10 years. But, you know.
Something I was wondering about, you could follow American soccer. You could support an MLS team, and yet you're committed to the English Premier League. The English Premier League's international appeal is something that I have observed but don't fully understand. Oftentimes, if you're from a country that might even have an established league of its own, it's sort of normal to support an English team. I know loads of people who support Arsenal, that's a big one, or Liverpool, or Man United back in the day, less so now. And they're not from England, and their countries will have their own leagues, and yet the Prem has this sort of hold over people, and I'm not entirely sure why. Is it just the amount of money that's in it?
I think it's the amount of money now that keeps the level high where they can attract the best players in the world. But England is the spiritual home of football. And these clubs really do have a history, and whether people know it or not, subliminally, I think they can feel when these clubs have those working class roots. I live in San Diego. I used to go to our local USL clubs matches before they were bulldozed out of the way for an MLS franchise. I really get nothing out of those MLS matches. They can bring in the shiny new toy, and it can be at a great time zone, but it doesn't have the history and it doesn't have the community that you feel in England.
Sure.
I think if you go to Latin America, the hold that the English Premier League has on sort of the rest of the world is replaced by Spain, La Liga.
Yeah.
But I think English being the lingua franca of the world also plays a factor. You combine all those things, and I think that's why people all have an English club. Another thing other than the underdogs I wanted to bring up is I was a bit worried that the politics would fade as they usually do because the hosts are usually better. What I mean by that is Russia 2018 calls for boycotts, but tournament goes smoothly because Russia go all out to sports wash, essentially. Qatar 2022, same exact thing. Lots of issues with that tournament. Slave labor building the stadiums, moving the tournament to the winter. Then the football was brilliant and the noise kind of faded away. In this tournament, I did notice while the football remained beautiful as always, even more so this year than some others for the reasons we mentioned before, the politics didn't fade away. And I think that's because of the stubbornness of the U.S. to bend at all in being a host. Iran was not allowed in to play their matches. They had to be basically escorted under armed guard to the stadium day of. They weren't allowed to stay the night in the U.S. They had to go back to Tijuana at 4 a.m. after their games. Hydration breaks made headlines, and that was obviously due to the corporate greed influenced by the American landscape. This is just off the top of my head. I mean, you had the U.S. red card situation, which I don't know if you know the super details of that, but Donald Trump stepping in to bring in a player back from a red card, first time in like 80 years.
Asking Fantini to reverse that decision.
And he did. And he did, yeah. So that was like sort of right in the middle of the tournament. And then at the very end, you have, like you said, Falkland Islands, Las Malvinas come up with England, Argentina, of course. You know, pretty much every match, Argentina had some scandal. I don't know if you saw at the end of the final when Spain lifted the trophy, the fireworks that went off around the stadium's rim were Argentina blue.
Oh, I didn't see that because I saw Spain win, but then I left to catch the last train home immediately, so I didn't watch them lift the trophy.
I don't think they cut to that shot on TV because of that.
Wow.
FIFA replied to the fireworks thing saying, oh, it's the FIFA colors, which is a convenient excuse, I guess, but it still was very suspicious. But the last political thing that I wanted to bring up was that closing ceremony, which, I mean, you were catching the train home. Maybe you saw some clips of it where Trump would not leave.
Yes, but that looked like an old man with dementia.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
It did.
Fantini had to grab him by the arm and sort of had to gently grab him by the arm and sort of lead him away.
Yeah, but that's one part about Spain winning that I think was a relief for the world. Famously, Messi has no problem shaking hands and smiling with Trump as he did after won the MLS title. But Spain is very left-wing as a country at the moment, especially, and that even trickles down to their wealthy players, which is quite rare sometimes. But Rodri, the captain, would not lift the trophy until Trump got out of the way, which was a great statement. But I think just encapsulated that the politics never went away.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing I wanted to highlight is diaspora communities were really showing this tournament because the stadiums were packed with fans from all the African countries, South America, Asia. According to an Athletic article I read, a vast majority of the fans supporting teams from what we would call the Global South in some circles were not traveling from those places. A vast majority of them were part of the diaspora communities of, places like Congo, Haiti, Ghana, Uzbekistan. They were already in America or already in Canada to watch these games.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I think part of that is how shockingly expensive the tickets were. Started like $1,000 even for the sort of group stage games. So if you had to factor in flights and hotels on top of that, which to America are already very expensive, as well as visa fees, all of that, that would have really, I think, very challenging for a lot of people to afford. But I think it's nice that the people show up as part of the diaspora, and I also think it's something that's nice about having a tournament like this, which is that you can have multiple teams. It's not like a local club. You're sort of, when you have, like, you are a diehard sort of Arsenal supporter, and you have a couple of other teams that you're a fan of as well. AFC Wimbledon, I know. St. Pauli, you're a fan of too.
Yeah, they're a good club. York City, 4th tier.
York, yeah. But I think that in general, people have a club that is close to their heart.
It's true. I'm not waking up early or indeed really watching many of those other teams week to week. I'm watching every Arsenal match.
Yeah, exactly. But a national team doesn't hit the same way because, well, partly because they play so infrequently, and also there may be players on the national team that play for a club you detest. So that can
seeing Erling Haaland become America's sweetheart was very frustrating.
I think that's just because he looks so strange.
I think he's a strange guy, and
he's a great player too.
He's very reserved in England, but I don't think the strangeness meshes with the English strangeness. Whereas he's very larger than life in a very American sort of way, but also has that Scandinavian condescension as well. And it just made this like perfect cocktail that was like leaving the Americans wanting more, but he also gelled with their weirdness.
Yeah, interesting. But which is to say that national teams playing at the World Cup does leave this space, particularly for people to support whichever team is likely to make it further. You know, if your host country, the country you live in, maybe the country you were born in, is knocked out, maybe the country your parents were from is still in. I was certainly asked whether I was supporting England or Switzerland a lot throughout the World Cup, and my answer was always, well, whoever's playing on the day. And I wonder if you had something similar, maybe US, Mexico, Britain. Your wife's British.
I had sort of a tier list when people would ask. I say there's a hierarchy of needs here going on, and it was always first and foremost Mexico, the motherland. In part, it's a lot easier to support them politically now with Scheinbaum leading the helm.
Yeah, she's great.
And I think I might be in a weird spot where I absolutely detest the national team of my passport, especially at the moment where I saw every victory of the U.S. as a victory Trump would claim, conservatives would claim. Didn't help that their most notable player, Christian Pulisic, is openly MAGA, attended a Turning Point USA event before this tournament.
Ew.
I know. So they could all go pray over him before the tournament. That was like...
Ew.
I know, dude.
I didn't know that. That's gross.
Yeah, I know.
But you know what I noticed, actually? When America started doing... Because America actually played fairly well this tournament, better than people expected. There was a touch of it's coming home in America. There was a little bit of English-style sort of bravado about how well America was playing in the World Cup. At least that filtered through online.
There was, all the people that don't watch football until the World Cup. They were positive America was making at least the semifinals. Even the commenters that weren't European were talking like that. But that kind of comes from the delusion of we're the best at everything. How could we not be?
I remember once there was a rugby friendly in Chicago between the US and New Zealand, and seeing an ad, it was about 10 years ago, and seeing an ad for an American ad. And it really made it out to be like this great clash of the titans.
The sleeping giant, they always call America.
I distinctly remember because in this one they said, the world's foremost rugby nation versus the greatest athletic nation in the world.
I mean, could be argued, I suppose.
Could be argued. Won the most Olympic medals,
I'm so tired of... You hear this on TV as well, but you hear like... Oh, imagine if LeBron James played this, or imagine if he was the goalie. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, he doesn't.
He's not. Yeah,
we got to live in the present. There is only one argument that I do stand by, and that is if you did put five-a-side cages in every neighborhood in America, you would end up with a really strong national team
Oh.
eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that would pop off in America.
We
They'd
we
love
don't
it.
have it.
Yeah.
We have like Arena,
Really?
which plays on like roller hockey rinks, and
But you do have those basketball courts. Because in Europe, you usually get, those often have a basketball hoop and a little football net.
yeah, but we don't. Yeah, I guess we could convert.
Yeah,
those.
but you don't have
We
that.
don't
Fair
have
enough.
it.
Yeah.
Again, we got to live in the present.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I can tell you the exact moment my American exceptionalism died. I actually this only occurred to me just now. This was when I was living in London, and maybe 2 months after I met you, and you were in my ear about why I need to be canvassing for Bernie Sanders and all the bad things America had done that I was in denial of. In the midst of that, I went to a group stage Rugby World Cup match where it was South Africa versus USA, and we lost like 64-0. And I left that stadium no longer an American exceptionalist. I was like, we have a chance,
Yeah,
we
that's
could
funny.
win this one. And I went in. It was so bad the South Africans started rooting for us to get a try. Didn't happen. People kept running down and bringing me a beer. Like, I got so drunk because
Really?
just South Africans.
Wow.
Like, oh, one American guy here, have a beer, man.
At Twickenham?
Where West Ham plays now, the old Olympic.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But anyway,
That's a nice stadium. That's funny.
we do have a unique show today. I thought it'd be a good idea to get some more perspectives because Adam and I have our political leanings. We have our cultural leanings. I wanted to reach out to some people and kind of see what this World Cup meant to them and what football meant at large in their life and in their countries. I managed to get essentially the European perspective here. We got 3 people that I'm very grateful agreed to come on the podcast, and I will lead into each one with its own intro separately. We'll take a listen to those. They provide their perspectives from their countries. But before that, Adam, I wanted to ask you, in 20 years' time, 5 World Cups from now, when we look back on this tournament, what do you think people will still be talking about?
Wow. Probably hydration breaks. I think that'll be the lasting legacy of this World Cup, to be honest. I think the political elements of it will be largely forgotten in 20 years' time. Trump will be 20 years dead.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. I do think the world will be a very different place. I actually suspect that China will, by that point, have had a really good World Cup run.
I don't know, man. Talk to the Chinese and they have no hope for their football teams. They got destroyed by Uzbekistan in the qualifiers.
I know, but they're starting to pump money into it.
Not
right?
as much as
how
before.
Saudi's
This is
doing.
after their money pump.
Okay.
That-
Oh, interesting.
I think they will host and they should host.
Yeah.
They have the infrastructure, and that's my prediction, is that we will have a Chinese World Cup within the next 25, 30 years, and that it'll be the best World Cup in terms of a hosting standpoint ever. But yeah, maybe more East Asian teams will rise in the football. But the hydration breaks will either be a blip, a very strange blip we talked about, or it was the start of the end.
Possibly.
People in the football community in America used to always talk about 94 when the U.S. first hosted. And at that stage, there was like no one that followed football that wasn't an immigrant. That was when a lot of young people got into it, but there wasn't the internet to watch games back then. So like just this spark started that eventually began a lifelong fandom. And I saw so many people watching games that are really hungry for more. So I do think this actually might be a spark. I don't think of America becoming an amazing footballing nation necessarily, but it will be a spark of more interest in a way we haven't seen before in America.
Yeah, I think maybe so.
But we will see. Let's go into our interviews. We hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, Sam here with some brief context before this first interview. This was recorded June 25th during the group stage of the World Cup. As you'll hear, our guest is quite humble. I'd like to do a bit of bragging on his behalf because we're just so honored to have him on. Pete Ward has had an illustrious career in PR and communications. He's a diehard Leeds supporter, as you will hear. And over his long career, he has written several plays that have made it both to television and the stage. He's worked with the likes of Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. And as you'll hear later in the interview, he is currently working on a project that both Adam and I would really love to see come to fruition one day. We do hope that Pete keeps writing and he has many more successes in the future. So thank you to Pete for coming on, and I hope you all enjoy. Hello, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Pete Ward and I live in the beautiful county of Yorkshire in northern England.
God's country. I miss it every day.
Yes.
So what do you do, Pete? What should the listeners know about you and your life?
Well, I'm technically retired, but I'm a writer till I die. I'm an ex-magazine editor, ex-marketing communications consultant, 30-odd years in PR and advertising. Prior to that, I was in photography, but my life has been in media communications, marketing communications, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. And before we jump into the football, what made you interested to say yes to coming on our humble podcast?
Your humble podcast, which I listen to and enjoy, yes. What made me say yes was the interesting premise about, how people feel about the World Cup being in the United States and also in Canada and Mexico. But they tend to be put into second and third place, or joint second place. Yeah, it's just interesting from my point of view because I'm a huge fan of football. We hate the way you call it soccer, but we understand why you do.
I call it football, don't worry.
I mean, I've been attending Leeds United games since I was 7 years old. I've been a season ticket holder now for many, many decades. It's in my blood. But I have to say, oh, by the way, the current ownership of Leeds United, the San Francisco 49ers, is the best we've had for ages.
I totally forgot that an NFL team owned Leeds United. Some big affiliation with Red Bull now as well, right?
There's a 10% shirt sponsorship, which we're quite scared about, but we don't want to become Red Bull Leeds United or Red Bull Leeds or whatever. Mm-hmm. No, it's all going well so far. And, well, we scraped into the Premiership and stayed there. And I'm hoping that we'll establish ourselves next season. As far as the World Cup goes, I can take it or leave it to a certain extent.
Okay.
I'm not massively interested in any other teams other than Leeds United. It's a crazy one-way love affair. But I was born in England, but my Scots ancestry makes me favour Scotland. Plus Uruguay, who are managed by Marcelo Bielsa, who Leeds fans absolutely adore for what he did for our club. But neither of those two teams seem to be going into the final stages. As far as the World Cup in the US goes, yeah, if a boycott had been workable, I'd have been all for it, not being in the USA. With all the nonsense that Trump's been up to in the world, whether it be Greenland, Venezuela, or Iran, or whatever, and throwing tariffs around at his allies like a toddler with too many rattles in his pram to get rid of. It was just incredible how he slags off the allies and then suddenly wants them to help him when he gets his silly war in Iran into a bit of a mix-up.
And a lot of our audience is based in the US. They might not be aware of how our quote-unquote leader, how his actions, even just his rhetoric, affects our allies. So maybe just briefly, what is that like living in England and watching what he does affect you? How does it affect you?
Yeah, it doesn't affect us in the same way it affects other countries. I mean, because of the Greenland situation, Denmark became an arch enemy of Trump because Greenland's a protectorate of Denmark. So Denmark, to its credit, and Danish politicians to their credit, have been very, very critical of what Trump has been trying to do with the whole Greenland thing, and it's spread throughout Europe. I'm saying we in the shape of Keir Starmer, who now is no longer the leader of the Labour Party, but Keir Starmer has not really stood up to Trump in the same way that, say, Denmark, Spain, even the right-wing-ish Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgio Moroni, even she's been critical of Trump. So when populisty right-wing-ish politicians are starting to criticize, then you know that something radically wrong. So yeah, the whole sort of European thing basically is, who the hell does Trump think he is? Trampling on various people, accusing us of not helping with the Iran situation in the Straits of Hormuz or whatever, and criticizing the whole NATO thing when I think the only time, I can't remember what it is, but there is some sort of article in the NATO agreement, and it's only been invoked once, and that was when the UK, and other countries, European countries, Australia, came to help America in Afghanistan. He's forgotten that people gave their lives for that. And he just blindly blathers on about, not caring about the US and not helping the US when people have died in Europe and elsewhere to help the US. And the only time that article has been invoked.
I believe that's Article 5 of NATO.
Right, okay. Yeah. And I think it has only been invoked that one time when everyone came to the aid of the US. So there is a feeling that if ever there was a country off the rails and didn't deserve the validation of a world tournament, at the moment it's the US.
Right.
I have to say that, having lived and worked with many Americans over the years, over a number of years, and found them delightful people, genuinely, super people to get on with. It's just this ruling mob at the moment that are giving you a bad name worldwide.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things, certain factions over here and in the UK as well, where populism is sort of rearing its ugly head, funded by morons like Musk, who is funding right-wing parties in the UK, in Germany, and far right-wing. We're not talking about, just right of centre. We're talking about far-right thugs, the likes of Tommy Robinson in the UK, a racist first class, if ever there was one. So it's that feeling that, the World Cup, why has it gone to America at this stage of the game? A ban or a boycott wouldn't have worked, I guess, because they thought that with Qatar in 22.
Right.
Everybody wanted to boycott that. But the whole thing is, it's snowball downhill. It just gets so big, does the FIFA thing, that there's no way of stopping it.
A few people have asked me why I am not boycotting. It's hard to explain. It's a bit of a cop-out because I think I am a slave to the beautiful game and watching it. But there also is, like you said, no valid organized boycott.
I mean, I'm not boycotting either, in the sense that I'm not watching a whole lot of matches, but to physically actually go there or, go to the States, when it comes to supporting your team, sort of logic goes out of the window to a certain extent. And you have all these inbuilt, in-depth beliefs and feelings. But when it comes to it, you want to see your team play. And even if you're going to a repressive regime, and I'm not saying the US is a repressive regime.
Oh, I will. It is.
Oh, come on, man.
It is.
At the moment, yes, I guess. It's a horrific regime at the moment. But take the Scots, for instance. They have gone over there in massive, massive numbers. To me, they look almost like the only ones that are true football fans. When the camera pans round and you see all these affluent people in the crowd, those are the people that can afford to go and pay the prices. But for some reason, everyone in Scotland's gone. It's closed at the moment. Everyone's over there. And when they come back, they'll have to remortgage their houses or...
They've emptied the savings account.
Yeah, to imagine how much money they must have spent. It's saved a lot of people from bankruptcy by not getting through to the next round, to the knockout stages. But it is that feeling that, yes, a boycott would be great, but it's totally unworkable, like many boycotts are. It puts me in mind of, and I'm starting on something now that my brain's kicked in, but I shouldn't have started because I can't remember the exact facts. But way back in 60s maybe, 5 Irish women working in a department store in Dublin, they boycotted South African goods, and they refused to work while they were stocking and buying apartheid goods. And I think they lasted out for years before finally being reinstated, and the Irish government legislated, and they were not buying from the South African regime. They stopped buying goods. So it was a boycott and a walkout that took however many years. But it can work sometimes, but that was on a small personal level. And I'm in awe of those 5 women, absolutely in what they achieved. But with something like the whole FIFA machinery, no. We know that FIFA is probably about as corrupt as any organisation is. Over the years, there have been so many things. Mr. Infantino at the moment he's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and the
he
way he
is.
panders to Trump is just crazy.
Yeah, I've only been a dedicated football fan for about a decade now, growing up here and falling in love with the game when I moved to London the first time. So I only know problematic hosts for the World Cup, and FIFA being like this, I don't remember any World Cup that didn't have this sort of baggage alongside it. But then I watch the Euros and it always usually goes, swimmingly.
Yeah, they do usually work quite well. I mean, there was a World Cup, I think, I can't remember now. I do get the Euros and the World Cups and the Olympics mixed up, but they do. Oh, South Africa, funnily enough, the South African tournament was quite a smooth.
Yeah, that one I think came with some baggage in terms of building stadiums that didn't later get used, but in terms of the tournament itself, I think that was a success.
Yes, that's right. And don't you quite often get stadiums that are overgrown and so many? I mean, was it Qatar or?
I think some of the Qatar ones were even temporary.
Yeah,
So,
but yeah, 3,000 workers died or something, while building
yeah,
these
yeah.
monstrosities. But yeah,
So, do you want to keep going on why we've talked about boycotts and we've talked about it being untenable? We've touched on the U.S. being an oppressive regime, but to you, why should this one? Why should it be boycotted? If it was possible, what are like some specifics, I guess, about America specifically?
I think the specifics just come down to what's happening politically as to why it should be boycotted or should have been. As an outsider, I get my news from various sources online and trying to always find the independent journalists that are left. And I don't think there are many of those left in the US, or certainly that's what Trump's mission seems to be. Buy the station or and then sack them all. I mean, 60 Minutes has gone, hasn't it? 60 Minutes gone?
It's still around, but yeah, it's owned by CBS, who is very beholden to Trump at this point.
Yeah, he installs somebody, buys it with, one of his billionaire chums. It's the whole political situation is why, you wouldn't hold it in Russia because of what Russia's doing in Ukraine, and you wouldn't hold it in America if not just for what Trump's doing around the world, and he's going crazy. But it's what he's doing in the States as well. It's what he's doing to his own people. It seems to us, and this is not just me, and I am a left-leaning person, yeah, and I am a paid-up member of the UK's Labour Party, but I cannot imagine how it must be to be somebody who, even though they are an illegal immigrant, works, pays their taxes, tries to make a good life for their family, can just be whipped off the streets and sent to some detainment camp or whatever that probably makes Guantanamo Bay look like a 5-star Mediterranean resort. Or it is so not right what's going on politically. It's scary. It's 1930s Germany all over again to a certain extent. And why would you pander to that sort of regime by giving them the world's biggest football tournament? I can't go more beyond that, really. I mean, I am in awe of the people in Minneapolis for how they stood up to ICE agents, ICE thugs. And I still cannot watch the murder of, Rennigood, of course, and see that guy walk away and think, that's it. He just got away with murder. Absolute first-degree murder, or whatever it's called. Why would they be able to host something as huge as a FIFA tournament? Russia is banned from just about everything. As a side issue, Israel isn't banned for doing worse, probably, than Putin's been up to. But anyway, that's a...
This podcast agrees with you completely. I mean, I sit here in San Diego, so you would think when you look out at the kits people are wearing that we're actually a Mexican city at the moment, including myself. I don't own a USA top, but I have a Mexico one.
Good. Yeah, excellent.
And I think the feeling with a lot of us is, just give the whole tournament to Mexico because it looks great down there right now.
Yeah, the game, the ones in Mexico, the whole atmosphere in Mexico was superb. The only time I've seen an atmosphere similar to that is the Scots in Boston.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on the political side, on the pricing side, and it's gotten to the point where it's even affected the game itself, being hosted in the US, right? I know it's a record-breaking heat wave at the moment in the UK, but the US is the one with the hydration breaks. So what do you think about those?
Oh my God. Hydration breaks. It seems crazy to us over here when, I mean, we're going through this little mini heat wave, as you say, but, temperatures around about 30 degrees or whatever. But when temperatures in this competition in the US and Canada and Mexico are so different, nowhere as extreme as in the last World Cup in Qatar, why hydration breaks? Is it a US ploy to break the beautiful game into quarters, like American football and basketball and ice hockey? Oh, no, is ice hockey?
There's 3 periods. Yeah, 3 periods. But lots of commercials in ice hockey as well here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something that UK and European fans are despising at the moment. And I think I hear a lot of booing.
I can tell you because I pull up a VPN and I'll watch the BBC feed or the ITV feed when I'm working, but then I'll watch Fox on the TV. Fox is muting the boos. We don't hear them, and their commentators are paid to say the hydration breaks are a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas when you're watching another feed, yes, you can definitely hear the boos. I had a friend that was at a match in Toronto, and he said the loudest, it was Ghana-Panama. He said the loudest part of the game, other than the Ghana goal, was the booing of the hydration breaks.
I mean, the BBC have called the hydration breaks on their website, I think, a heavily jeered $250 million gold mine for
Yeah.
the advertising. I mean, as an ex-ad man with a conscience, I mean, I spent 30 years in, selling crap to people who didn't want it in the first place. But sort of with a conscience. We never took on clients that were overtly rip-off merchants. But to me, it's just so obviously that the greed of the advertisers, they can cram in 6 minutes per match. Meaningless advertising generating whatever it is it $250,000 or whatever for Murdoch's Fox and Fox Sports? I mean, thankfully, we don't see any ads in that 3 minutes. And if you're watching any BBC feeds, then, we see the players talking and being coached and what have you. But no, it's wrong. It is just so wrong. Football is a game of two halves, 45 minutes each way. That's the way it's devised for the working classes who went to watch it and played it. And it's gone out of all proportion now. And to think that might become, it probably will become standard in World Cups.
I hope not.
God, I hope not. But I mean, they did in Qatar, but I think with some reasonable justification.
And Qatar's was about 30 seconds, didn't cut to ads. There were 11 people with water bottles run out to each player. They just get
quick drink, yeah.
Yeah, managers weren't allowed to speak to the players. Now it's, like you said, it's the end of a quarter. They huddle up, readjust, and it changes the game completely. It stops the momentum.
It does. But I've heard some juicy language in the States as well. A couple of recordings of anti-Trump chants.
Yeah.
I thought, that sounds very brave, or they're very drunk.
I believe it was a lot of them were the Scots. I think maybe they were using their privilege of being white Europeans to their advantage there. Because I think if the Ecuador fans or someone were chanting stuff like that, maybe ICE would have something to say. So good on the Scots for using their privilege to something good.
Absolutely. It's probably alcohol as well. But I mean, come on, It's the Scots that frequently go onto Trump's golf course and defecate on the greens. So
Yeah. So with Scotland out and Uruguay not looking so great in this tournament, you are living in England. Are you going to be supporting the Three Lions going forward, or?
No, I can't. I just can't bring myself to do it. And I'm not sure why. Because of the Scots connection in my family, I just feel an affinity towards Scotland. I've also got, on the other side of the family, is Irish. So I just always feel this affinity to the Celts, whichever lot. Also, I grew up with the Don Revie team of Leeds United. And over half the side were Scottish internationals. So that was great. And most of the people in the England team are with teams I don't like. So I can't suddenly develop a love for those particular characters. But I hope they do well. And I did watch 10 minutes of the game against Ghana, but was bored and gave it up. And that was in the first half. So, I mean, yes, this is the... I mean, when it comes to it, it makes it quite interesting to see the likes of Haiti, and it makes it interesting. It makes it interesting for the neutral fan, I guess, as well, to see games that, bloody hell, that was unexpected. But when it boils down to it, it will be the same, no matter how many teams go into it. And FIFA just seem to cram it with as many as they can. It's going to be the same four that are in the semi-finals, whether it's, Spain, France, Argentina, Brazil, or whatever. It's going to boil down to that lot. It's just a shame Italy isn't there. I can't believe that a team like Italy did not make it, because of some of the groups are just groups of death,
They had their chances. They lost all those qualifying games, lost to Bosnia. I have a lot of friends that don't watch football normally, so then they're watching it and they're like, why is Bosnia there? What are they just gonna lose all the games? I'm like, well, they beat Italy to get here, so like all the teams here earned it.
Oh, of course they have. Yes, absolutely.
Give them a chance. Well, for me, this tournament has probably been the first one where it is actually easier to root for England than it has been, because they've got 4 Arsenal players and Harry Kane no longer plays for Tottenham, so it's a little easier to support England. I was on the England hate train before I married an English woman.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a very easy to root against England if you have read your history.
Yes.
But anyway, I have no idea who will win, but it'll probably be one of the 4 you mentioned.
Well, so yeah, one of that ilk. I'm sure there are some others that I've...
If you watch the pundits in the US, they're deluded into thinking the US have a chance, but...
Right, okay. We've had another ex-Leeds manager who we have no affection for whatsoever, is Jesse Marsh.
No.
and he's managing Canada. I would have quite liked Canada to get through, only because they're one of the countries that stood up to Trump. But with Marsh, he's such an arrogant big head. It's just incredible. We were so pleased to see the back of him when he left Leeds.
I will say, I wish Leeds United the best going forward, because the Premier League is always better when there's a strong Yorkshire squad in there. And you can really feel it when there's seasons where there's none. So, Pete, it's been great having you on, and we will definitely have you on the podcast again if you're interested to talk about other topics in the future. You just got to let me know. And is there anything else you want to share about your love of football that has translated into your life in the past?
I absolutely would love to be involved in another podcast. But yeah, football has been part of my life since my granddad first took me to Elland Road to see Leeds when I was 7. He was the loveliest guy. I loved him madly. And he inflicted it on me. And I've hopefully transmitting it on to my kids, and even Annette's grandsons are now, staunch Leeds supporters. But it's also led me to one of the periods when, in the 60s, the early 60s, when Don Revie first took over, prompted me to write a stage play. And I've written 2 or 3 things. I've won a BBC award and odds and sods. But latterly, I'm now back to what's known as a struggling writer, and which is great at my stage in life. But challenges are always something to be faced. But this play at the moment, although not quite complete, is with a theatre company in Leeds, and it's about an ex-Leeds United footballer called Albert Johansson. The whole thing, the play's called Albert. That's it. That's all everybody needs to know. But Albert was a mercurial black footballer who escaped the horrors of 1960s South African apartheid and made English football history when he became the first black player to play at Wembley in an FA Cup final when he played for Leeds versus Liverpool. He was a shy, retiring guy, but he had amazing skills as a left winger. But it was impossible for him to escape the relentless racist abuse on and off the field that he faced in England. And this is going through a time when the National Front was extremely strong in the UK. That's the forerunner to Tommy Robinson's lot, who are operating now. I mean, it was just incredible, the abuse he suffered on the field. It took its toll. And the only solution he found was alcohol, sadly. And gradually, his career came to a close. He was transferred to York City. He was drinking way too much. He split his marriage up. And so the play follows his rise to fame, and he was a superb footballer. It then deals with his fall, and hopefully we give him the redemption he deserves as a human being for inspiring a whole generation of British black kids to enter the whites-dominated world of professional football. So many black players who grew up in the 70s name Albert as the inspiration. When they saw him play at Wembley, they suddenly thought, oh, this is something that I can do. It's not just white guys that get to play football. So hopefully it's in the latter stages of being assessed. We're changing the third act, and hopefully it's a goer. But we'll see.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful, and I wish you the best with that. When there's an update, feel free to share it with us, and we'll send it out to our admittedly probably a lot smaller audience than you already have yourself.
I'm not sure about that, but there you go.
Thank you for coming on. It really means a lot. I think you are the most decorated guest we will have for quite some time. Right, okay. But we've been ending these interview segments with, kind of depends on the person. If they're representing their country sort of as a whole, they say, for my country, football is this. But as we've talked about, you've got an eclectic background. I wouldn't describe you as traditionally, staunchly English. So just to you, Pete, football is what?
Quite simply, it's a way of life for me. It means so much to me along the Leeds United lines more than anything. It's a constant nagging irritation to a lot of those close to me that for 3/4 of the year, it takes precedence over other activities. But, football is just so important. It's a ridiculously worldwide phenomenon that means so much to people. And it is tribal. Yeah, it's tribal. In the UK, it's a working class background where football matches, football clubs such as Aston Villa comes to mind. The stadium was built next to the factory, so it gave them that outlet on a weekend to not be in the factory, but be close to it, but yet have this amazing outlet. And I love old photographs of 1950s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, to a certain extent, football, when it was a whole crowd of guys with raincoats and flat caps.
Yeah, definitely.
No, football is so important to me.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Pete. It's been an honor having you on the podcast, and we'll see you soon.
It's been an absolute delight, Sam, and look forward to it, yeah.
Now, this next interview is with a good friend of mine from Switzerland. I think it really encapsulates what football means to us in our day-to-day, what it means to us for our countries, what it means for us to be a part of community. And I think it's something we can all attach in our day-to-day lives. I will say the audio isn't the best on this one, though the information, the conversation, all great. And I want to thank my good friend Mischa for coming on the podcast, and I hope you all enjoy. Hello, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi Sam, my name is Mischa and I'm from Switzerland.
And I know Switzerland has a few different languages, so which linguistic part of Switzerland are you from?
I speak at home Swiss German, a specific dialect which is not that easy to understand. And at work, I speak mostly French.
And what type of work do you do?
I work at a bank as a leasing consultant, this already for the last 17 years.
Nice. Swiss banker is the stereotype.
It's probably a stereotype, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. We're here to talk about the World Cup and this World Cup specifically. So I wanted to start by asking you what football means to you personally.
I personally have played football for the last 20 years. So football is more than just a sport to me. I love to play the game. I love to be together with other people, play against some old friends, to have a beer after the game, connecting with people, expressing emotions, and also feeling part of something bigger, because otherwise we are blocked at work. And when you have like a football beside of your work, you can enjoy the evening and still like do some sport.
I love that. And I've visited Mischa myself a few years ago, and I got to witness the community he has due to the sports around him. You're also a fan of watching football as well. What teams do you support?
Yeah, I used to watch a lot of games when I was younger. I'm supporting Manchester United. It's not always a pleasure to look them or their games, but still, it's like always nice to watch games with some friends, and it's probably because of one of my best friends that I'm supporter of Manchester. I wasn't born into the Manchester community, but still.
I mean, I'm a huge Arsenal supporter, and I was not born into it either. It finds us, right?
That's true.
So looking at the World Cup, I know that Switzerland normally is quite a divided country, divided by language and regions. So what does the World Cup mean to you, and what does it mean to Switzerland?
In Switzerland, you have to know that ice hockey is probably the most important sport, or ski or stuff like that. But football is also a really important sport in our country because a lot of people play it. I wouldn't say that everyone follows the national team, but still a lot of people does it. And I'm also used to watch like every single game of our Swiss national team. We are proud of our national team, even if we have sometimes some problems with some players.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be sort of the only time that Switzerland feels united, right, as a country. Is that true?
Difficult to answer, to be honest. Well, as you already mentioned, we have 4 different languages. 3 of them are still spoken. One of them is like, in several parts, but not that much. So we have like 4 cultures in one single country. In the national team, they play together. They want to represent the whole country, and we have some French people, some German, Swiss German people, some Italian players, and that makes it nice. And so we are staying closer together than beside of sports.
What does the World Cup generally feel like to you in the past when it's been in different countries? Like, how does it make you feel about the world?
It's always a special event that brings the world together. I would say you have some special countries that you maybe don't even knew that they exist, which can participate. Some small countries, some big countries. It's just a mix of excitement and frustration for all these teams. And it's nice to see them play football together against each other, but still after the game, they're like one whole family and not just players who play against another national team.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you know, this year's World Cup is mainly being hosted by the United States. There are matches in Mexico and Canada as well, but the finals, the semifinals, a lot of the big games are being played in the United States. What is the general opinion of the United States right now in Switzerland?
The opinion of the US and Switzerland is mixed. On one hand, people admire the country's innovation and influence, but on the other hand, we're like a little bit skeptic about politics, like probably a lot of people, social issues, how it handles global responsibilities. It's like with the war going on, with some other problems with Trump deciding from one day to another completely different stuff, which has an influence on our economy too. It's not that easy to support the whole World Cup.
And I think that's why I'm looking for these perspectives. Is a lot of Americans that listen might not even be aware how much our economy and our leaders' actions affect other countries around the world. Does this year's World Cup feel different to you than past tournaments?
That's another difficult question because the last two tournaments weren't easy too. I'm just thinking that the whole FIFA delegation is going to the wrong direction. I don't want to say that's a bad thing to do the World Cup in the US. Probably not the right moment. And I would just like that FIFA is changing back to its roots, because at the beginning, football was like the main part of the business. Now it's more cash. It's like seeing some people from politics and having just like the power to change some other stuff besides football. That's not the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I think when this tournament was announced, it was about 10 years ago, there was definitely a different view of the United States. And I think a lot of people were excited. But you're right that the last few tournaments with Qatar and then Russia before that were also weighted heavily emotionally and politically. And that won't really change in future because you got the next tournament, which is hosted by quite a lot of countries to make way for the one after, which will be Saudi Arabia, which I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about as well, especially if they make it in the winter again. So when the World Cup begins, the matches start, usually all the talk and all these protests, all the boycotts, they kind of go silent because the football is so captivating. But do you think that players, national teams, reporters, fans, do you think they can do more, or are we all slaves to the game that we love?
I wouldn't say that the boycotts and protests go silent. The problem is probably that the whole games are also like on the media. And that's why we have way more media presentations of like soccer or football stuff. I don't like to say soccer, sorry for that.
I don't either, don't worry.
But it's really tough to say because we are not so close to the players. Maybe they try to say something against that. They're not heard, or they're like just cutting down the interviews, or I'm not sure if they really say nothing about the whole situation. But there's always the possibility to do more, to go against the whole FIFA or the whole organization. But until I would say that's their job. They get some money. They want to win for the whole team, and you can't just stop playing football because it's not like what you want to do for the moment. And if you have done some sports, you want to win the game. That's the only important stuff during the game. After and before the game, yeah, you can probably do some protesting, some advertising for a better organization.
Right. And for the fans, do you think the World Cup is too big to boycott? Do you think it would be impossible?
It's difficult. Actually, with the ticket prices, which are really high, there are a lot of, say, rich people which are hosting the games, and they will still continue because they want to see the games. They want to say that they were there. I would say 100,000 people are always going to go to the game. If I don't participate, there's another guy who goes to watch the game. That's a little bit the problem behind.
And it's the same with TV, right? People will still watch.
Yeah, it's like I can just say what we do in our region. We sit together, we have a nice discussion, and we watch the game, even if it's in the US or in Russia or somewhere else in the world. We still want to watch the game, participate at the whole atmosphere, and that's probably going to stay like forever.
Well, sounds like Switzerland needs to host eventually, because we want a really truly neutral host. They're the definition of it. And they have the stadiums already, right?
Yeah, probably not the biggest ones, but still, like, it would be a nice tournament.
People would have a good time. Well, Thank you, Mischa, for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on, and I think our audience really appreciates the effort you put in. As you said, this is not your first language or your second, so we applaud you for that. And is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about you, about Switzerland, about football, about the World Cup?
We have not the best team, but you have once to come visit Switzerland to enjoy the atmosphere in the stadium.
Yeah. And I still need to go to a football match there. You've taken me to an ice hockey match, which was probably one of the best crowds I've ever been in. If you guys haven't been to a Swiss ice hockey match, you are missing out. I have one last thing for you to end. Can you finish this sentence for me? For my country, football is
Symbol of national pride, shared passion that brings us together across the regions and languages. That's probably the best sentence for Switzerland because we are like not just one culture. There is way more to see and to feel in Switzerland.
amazing. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Sam.
Now, just as it would have been irresponsible to not have an English voice discussing the World Cup, it also would have been a crime to not have someone from France. So this next guest in our final interview is a good friend of mine who really showed me the joy of the World Cup. 2018 was my first time ever really following the World Cup closely, and in part it was due to this cohort of French international students that were in my city. Khaled was one of them, and he remains one of my good friends to this day. I also think his perspective sheds a lot of light on our identities and the cultures we grow up in and the cultures we may be labeled as. I want to thank him for coming on the show, and I hope you all enjoy this discussion. It took place on July 8th, just before Morocco and France were to play each other in the World Cup quarterfinal. Hello, my friend. What's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, hello. So my name is Khaled. I grew up in France and I've been living in Montreal in Canada for just under a year now.
It's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on. And where in France are you from specifically?
I used to live in around Paris. So I've
Right.
been doing my whole life in Paris and in the suburb.
And speaking of that, I actually was watching TV and I saw the legendary French player Thierry Henry mention that there are 54 players during this World Cup that are from the suburbs of Paris. People listening are probably thinking, well, that's more than a squad. So that's not just the French
Yeah,
team,
that's
right?
more than a squad. It's like 2 squads.
Yeah, there's people from the suburbs of Paris playing for Morocco, Algeria,
Haiti.
Côte d'Ivoire, a few different places, right? Congo even. So
Exactly.
growing up in the suburbs of Paris, what does football mean to you?
Growing up in the suburb of Paris, football is kind of the main sport everybody is used to play, to be honest, because all around the cities you can find a lot of spot to play, and this is like the main thing that you used to do when you're a kid. So since we are kids, everybody has like kind of football, soccer, I would say. We are saying, by the way, we are saying football in France, not soccer.
I say football as well.
Okay, so everybody used to play football. This is like the most popular sport. And there is also the Paris Saint-Germain, kind of a big ads for the football all around. It was not the case for everybody when I was a kid, but now with the Champions League, it became like for everybody, to be honest.
Yeah, we were talking a bit before the Champions League final because your team and my team were playing against each other, right? So congratulations to your club.
Thank you.
And
you did well. You did well as well.
well, I wasn't playing, but I
Big
appreciate
season.
it. And I hope that meant a lot for the people of Paris because I know it's a great city. And speaking of PSG, how does football manifest for you today? How does football still present itself in your life?
When I think about football, first I think about passion. I also think about joy. And I also think about that famous 2006 World Cup final between France and Italy, for example. I was only 10 years old. It was the first World Cup I was really old enough to experience and to understand it. I remember that France had already won in 1998, but I was kind of too young to really remember it and to feel it. as the one in 2006. Football reminds me also of my brothers, my dad, my friends. They are all passionate about game. And to me, football is like a TV show, to be honest, that never ends. Every season brings new stories, new heroes, new drama. It's something that brings people together and also give us a chance, I would say, to escape from everyday lives, at least for 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it as well. And you've kind of mentioned what it means to be French and to watch. I mean, France always has a strong team every tournament, so that must be pretty fun.
That was not always the case, but yeah, it's been like, let's say, 10 years, 14 years.
Yeah, I met you during the 2018 World Cup, and we all know how that turned out. It was a fun ride. Now, I know you and listeners that have heard, I mean, you have a French accent, but your name is Khaled, which is not a French name, right? So do you have a different background that your family comes from?
Yeah, actually, my parents are born in Morocco, and it's kind of interesting because tomorrow it's gonna be France against Morocco. So now around me, everybody is asking me, "Who are you supporting right now?" So I feel like I have a choice to do, But since I'm kid, I feel like I have no choice to do, and now everybody comes to me. You have to choose. You have to choose. You have to choose. I would say no. By the end, I'm not the one who's gonna cry by the end because 100% I'm gonna still be here at the semifinal.
Right. But then also 100% will be sad as well, right?
Exactly. But I'm not gonna be the most sad one, I would say.
Good point. And by the time this comes out, everyone will know who has won, but we'll see. We're in the past at the moment. So speaking of Morocco, they're the last African team left in this World Cup. They've had quite a run. So what does that mean to you when Morocco is so strong nowadays? Because in the past, there were no African clubs that could touch the Europeans in the skill level. But nowadays, there's a lot more players that, play for Morocco or Senegal or other African teams. And a lot of them grew up in France. So what does that mean to you when you're watching those teams?
That's a good question. First, I have kind of a different opinion about it. When we think about it, for me, Morocco doesn't represent Africa, at least by the end of the day. It's like saying, oh, you supporting France. What do you think about the European countries that are playing soccer, You see my point? So
I get you.
By the end of the day, I'm saying that it's nice for the African countries, like all African countries, to have more participation, being very strong, being like more than challenger and outsider of the World Cup. I think about the Senegal, I think about the Côte d'Ivoire, also Morocco. It was kind of difficult, sorry for the Tunisian friends, but things happen. So for me, it means a lot because nowadays we have like this French expression saying, on récupère les fruits. It's like, I don't know how to say it in English. It's like, now we are only grabbing the fruit from the trees right now. But the whole project about Morocco has started like more than 10 years ago, investing in young players, investing in infrastructure, investing in soccer to make sure that right now we can go and have everything to do our best football. So even on 2022, we did well. I feel like we did well. So everybody was kind of waiting. Morocco, oh, is probably chance. They were like kind of overplaying because of the passion and the competition. But then we had the African Cup, La CAN, and we did well. Went to the final. We'll let you decide who won.
Weird final, right? Yeah, they did well in the tournament. We'll leave it at that.
But
right?
in the tournament, we did very well, to be honest. And now we are like on the quarter of final of the World Cup, so it's not chance anymore.
Yeah,
and we are not kind of an outsider. You can look at more countries like South America, even European countries. We are doing kind of better than them in terms of the game. So I'm very happy about that. And
made it further than Brazil.
By the end of the day, yeah, we did like match nul 1-1. It was tough game. I think we are kind of better and more consistent in a way. So it's nice for Morocco. And then if people decide that Morocco will represent the African countries, well, why not?
That actually kind of begs a question that has popped into my head. Looking at the politics of Europe and what it means to be European, there's a lot of people in Europe that want to see French people a certain way, or Italians or English people as being a certain look or religion. But I think when you look at the French team, the English team, the Spanish team, you see people from all over sort of the world that have made their homes in these countries, and they are just as French or just as Spanish or just as English as anyone else, and they're the ones helping the team to win, right? So do you think football is an expression of the cooperation within a country like France, or is there still some tension?
That's a very interesting question, to be honest. I would choose my word. I'm French and Morocco. I'm supporting both national teams, okay? They are actually fascinating in a way for different reasons. On one side, you have Morocco. The country, as I said, has invested heavily in football over the past few years, and reaching the semifinals in 2020 completely changed the way people see the team. They are no longer viewed as outsider, and they are now seen as real contenders, okay? And what's also beautiful is that many Moroccan players were born or actually trained abroad, and people in Morocco are incredibly proud of that. To be honest, they see those players as representing the country no matter where they grew up, okay? And on the other side, there is like France, where I was born and raised. France has always had many players born in France to immigrant parents, okay? So over the years, there have often been debates about identity or the skin color of the French player team. That's a fact, to be honest. But what I found really beautiful is that once an international tournament begins, like the World Cup, everyone gets behind Les Bleus. You know, everybody is supporting the team, the national team. It doesn't matter where your family come from. Let's take an example. In 1988, Zidane became a national icon despite Algerian roots, to be honest. And in 2018, players like Pogba, Mbappe, they all became heroes, and the whole country were kind of celebrating together. And that's, for me, that's what football is all about. And it should stick and stay like this.
Very well said. Let's briefly talk about this year's World Cup. And we've mentioned who's playing, but it's being hosted, mainly in the United States. It's sharing some venues with Canada, with Mexico as well. What is the opinion of the US right now in your home country of France? I mean, I know even in the good times, there's a certain stereotype of America, but what is the feeling right now?
Before the tournament started, a lot of people were kind of skeptical. Yeah, everyone is aware of the current geopolitical situation. And obviously, the United States is part of many international discussions. They were also concerned about how difficult it might be for some fans to enter the country. And people talk a lot about certain decisions that could make football feel a bit more American. You know, this is what people in Europe are saying, you know, oh, this is not American football. It's soccer. It's supposed to be like this. Some rules like the hydration break, kind of stuff like this.
Yeah, 4 quarters.
And people are saying, yeah, it's for advertising. Things like longer commercial breaks or extra stoppage for advertising. This is what people are saying, okay? We also know that soccer isn't as popular in the US as in many other countries. To be honest, I also see this World Cup as an opportunity to introduce the football to even more Americans. So in a way, it's nice for the football. But then we just saw what's happened with the game and Balogun and Trump. So everything kind of starts okay, and then it became kind of weird. So I'm kind of, how can I say, mitigé in between, because I'm kind of addicted to the football and the soccer and all the countries. Then some rules are kind of changing, so it became a little bit more difficult those days. But by the end of the day, I also see it like an opportunity for many countries to expose themselves and to do some marketing or geopolitics and to make their countries like more famous all around the world.
Everyone knows Cabo Verde or Cape Verde.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a perfect example.
First off, I'm pretty happy with the result, I must say, about the US-Belgium game because of all the shenanigans going on before it. And I didn't want to see that continue through the tournament. So I'm glad that there was an end to it there.
Yeah, I agree.
How has it been in Canada? Because I know in Canada as well, maybe there's a higher percent of people that watch football, but not by much. I mean, hockey is very popular there, baseball. You know, Montreal's not hosting any matches, but have you felt the World Cup energy there?
Yeah, 100%, to be honest. I have like a group of friends, like very passionate about football. So we are not missing any, at least French game. Always going outside with a group of 10 people, like to watch all the French game, for example. Even where I'm living, we have kind of a lounge with a TV set up, and we use like with my neighbor to go and watch some games together, even if it's not like French or Moroccan team. So for me, I feel it. Even outside, there is like you are in Montreal by the end of the day. So people are living here. They are all coming from all around the world. So even outside here in the downtown, you can feel it. After each game, everybody's going outside. You can see different flags of different countries, different team, different skin colors. So that's nice by the end of the day. I feel it. Not as much as in France, but I feel it.
So then, does this World Cup feel different at all than any of the past tournaments, or does it feel like a pretty normal World Cup at the end of the day once it's started?
I like to call it like the World Cup of the new generation. There are more teams, but more importantly, almost every national team has improved. The players are younger, they've all benefited from excellent academies, and the overall level has become much, I would say, competitive in a way. You can no longer assume that the traditional football nation will dominate every game. That was the case for Switzerland against Qatar. We had the Cap Verde and a lot of different teams, even Egypt against Argentina, for example. It was like a tough game. So it's not something we can assume anymore. Every player now has benefited like from an excellent academy. So it makes the football more difficult to anticipate, more unexpected in a way. And also, this tournament also feels special because it's probably like the last World Cup for Messi and Ronaldo. We're
Yeah.
not forgetting about it. It really feels like the end of one era and the beginning of another for me.
So we spoke a little bit about geopolitical situations and our feelings going into this. And I think at least the past few World Cups that I kind of experienced, that was kind of the case as well, leading up to it with Russia, with Qatar. And then the matches start and sort of the protests are drowned out by the football, right? Do you think that the players or the teams or the reporters or the fans can do more to highlight these issues? Or as you said, like, you're addicted to the football, I'm addicted to the football too. Like, do they have us under control?
That's a really interesting question, Sam. Personally, I wouldn't say I'm a slave to football. I'd say I'm more addicted to the emotion it gives me. Sounds poetic. But would boycotting the tournament actually solve anything? I'm not sure, to be honest. First of all, this World Cup isn't only happening in the United States, it's also giving visibility to Canada and Mexico, countries with different political realities. And secondly, the World Cup gives millions of people around the world a reason to feel proud of where they are coming from, even if it's just for a few weeks. Take the relationship, for example, between the United States and Iran, for example. Okay, despite all the political tensions, Iran still choose to participate, right?
Yeah.
To me, that's also a way of saying that life goes on and that football can exist even in difficult times. I completely understand, by the way, people who choose to boycott the tournament. At the same time, I also understand those who simply want to enjoy the football and just not go deeply into geopolitical things. By the end of the day, football is still a game and it should be a game, and it's important to not forget about it.
Well put. Yeah, that's all been very enlightening. I think your perspective is really important. Is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about you, about France, about football, about anything?
Yeah, I would say in difficult times like this, because we are kind of in difficult times right now, I think it's very important to take a step back before forming a strong and deep opinion. Even right now with the social media, I think is moving a lot. We didn't have like all the parts of the story to have a forming opinion easily. So trying to understand the situation, look at both sides of the arguments and think critically is very important for me. And again, above all, we need really to respect each other. And by the end of the day, don't forget about it, guys. Football is a game. Football is the game. So they want to make it political. This is also our mission to say no.
And I have one last question for you. It's more of a statement that I'd like you to complete. And you can either you can talk about it broadly as your country, about France, about Morocco, or just about you, because you're a combination of many different factors. So to you, football is what?
For me, football is the favorite sport for millions and millions of people. But for others, it's also a reflection of a part of our society that makes some people, I would say, uncomfortable, unfortunately. So this is always the same border between, is it a game or is it like political way or a game that we are using to do politics? So there is like a strong border between them. That's kind of my definition right now. But for me, especially for me, it's the favorite sport. It's a game, and it's a moment to have fun and share and bring people together.
Beautiful. And we appreciate you coming on to share your perspective.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
thank you
anytime.
for inviting me, Sam.
And I know that obviously English is not your first language, so just I appreciate you coming on and giving this in English. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And if there is any info you'd like us to share, let me know. We'll put it in the description.
Sure, 100%. Thank you very much.
But
allez Paris Saint-Germain, et allez la France, et allez le Maroc. Let's go Paris, let's go France, and let's go Morocco.
Allez les Bleus. You taught me that one 8 years ago, and I'll never forget it.
Allez les Bleus.
So Adam, that was our 3 interviews. Thank you to Pete, Mischa, and Khaled for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed hearing all of their perspectives. Really very interesting. Especially Pete as a diehard Leeds United supporter. That's always nice to hear.
Yeah, and it never ceases to amaze me when my friends whose English is not the first language have enough confidence to come on and give an interview. I'm really appreciative of that as well. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really great from them.
We'll kind of include Ike when I'm asking these questions as well, since we spoke about the World Cup. Was there anything that surprised you in these conversations, Adam?
A few things, really. One, I did not realize that the booing of the hydration breaks was muted on American television.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. I also, as someone who's not usually a huge football fan, I did think that the strength of passion in the backlash to hydration breaks was interesting. I thought it was like, that's a bit annoying, but oh well. But people really passionately hate it. And I thought particularly what Pete said about that, about he contrasted it to a working class game of two halves. And the implication being that introducing the hydration breaks in order to, as everyone expects, add these sort of advertising possibilities into the viewing experience is somehow a violation of those working class values, is something that I hadn't considered and I do think was a very interesting take.
I hope to one day be as like subtly poetic as Pete is, because I really envy his vocabulary, to be honest. But no, that is an interesting point.
I also thought that it was very interesting hearing Khaled talk about who you support with 2 national teams. That's something that is a question I've gotten to, and we discussed prior to hearing those interviews. And the fact you get to pick who you sort of root for on the day. I will say I watched the France-Morocco game in Amsterdam. I was on holiday there.
Nice.
And everyone was supporting Morocco.
Awesome.
It was crazy. Everyone was supporting Morocco. A lot of Moroccans in Amsterdam.
Half of their team was like born in the Netherlands, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the specific figures, but a fair few, yeah.
But that kind of also bleeds into there was a few discussions about club teams. I mean, Pete lives in Yorkshire. He doesn't miss a Leeds home match typically. But I mean, Mischa is from Switzerland and he goes to a Man United match every year. Ike is in Texas and wakes up for Liverpool. I mean, I'm here supporting Arsenal in California. I guess I'm asking you to put like the anthropology brain up a notch a bit on this question. What does that say about community and identity? This is something you choose, but what does that say about belonging as humans and our groups and our tribes.
Yeah, people talk about nationality as something that is as much a part about a sort of sense of belonging as it is about political and economic organization. And to an extent that's true. But the problem with having identity based on nationality is that your nation state will make choices inevitably that you don't like. Your football team will as well. However, two things. One, you choose your football team. Usually, often it's where you were close to where you were born, but not always. It's maybe an early experience or something like that. And it's not that deep at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a game, and as we know, football is ultimately an unimportant thing, even as much as people love it. So I think that has something to do with it. It really is something that people can love with their whole heart, and it doesn't affect the rest of your life that much. Nothing is apolitical, but you can, with football, pretend for a little bit sometimes. The World Cup makes it harder to do that, but in club sports, you can a little bit more, which is in part why people objected to the Super League so much, because it was so clearly a violation of these values.
For sure.
I will say that is also a privileged view and quite a male view as well, I think, a lot of the time. I think that men are socialized to not find it that easy to integrate into community as much as women, but sport is an area in which they can do that. The global popularity of football, and maybe especially the English Premier League, means that you can sort of inevitably find something to talk about wherever you are in the world. If you're in a cab in Johannesburg or something, you can probably talk about the football with the guy who's driving you around.
Yeah.
Certainly anywhere in Europe. But it is also worth saying that just to add a little bit of being a killjoy to the end, that despite the apolitical nature of it, there are still downsides that come with club football. Domestic violence rates go massively up when England plays. I'm not sure if it's about specific club statistics. I suppose that would vary by club. And that's win or lose. The rates go up.
Wow.
They go up more when England loses, but they go up either way.
Could that just be a correlation with alcohol consumption?
Yeah, could be. I'm not sure about. I'd have to look into the statistic more, but that would make sense to me as well.
Fair. Yeah, you're right. You did bring it down. But let's bring it back up. But that is something to ponder for sure, and to always consider.
Yeah, who gets to be a part of the community?
That is something in my head I did think about, because I think Khaled and you and I have opposing views on apoliticality in that we don't think it exists.
Yeah,
and that's fair, and we're allowed to have those different points of view.
Yeah, and I will say that on politics, like it is easy to pretend in part because it's the men's game, right?
Yeah.
And men are involved. The Women's World Cup is next year, I believe. But you do always say the Women's World Cup, right? You don't say the World Cup.
True.
And so who gets to be a part of that community is an interesting question. Now, of course, lots of women are fans of football.
Side note, North London does show up for the Arsenal women's team in that they accounted for 56% of all attendance of the whole league last year.
Oh my
is
God,
great for
wow.
Arsenal, but a bad sign for the rest of the league.
Yeah, jeez, wow.
No, they sell out the Emirates, which is where the men play quite often.
That's great. Well, maybe that'll change. The new season of Ted Lasso is coming out next month about the women's team.
We will see. We'll see. And I wanted to get your thoughts very briefly on, I mean, we had a Swiss guy on that was not you. And to our listeners, that's more what half of Switzerland sounds like accent-wise.
Yeah, but I could tell he wasn't from Zurich. I'm not sure where he was from, but I could tell he wasn't.
He's from
Zurich.
Freiburg. So like
Freiburg.
So as you said, he
okay.
speaks French at work, speaks German at home.
Sure.
I just wanted to see if you could verify his claims that basically football is one of the things that brings Switzerland together the most as a country.
Yeah, I think so. Football, definitely, when the national team plays. The Swiss cantons are very individualized. They're like American states, but maybe even more so because sometimes the language varies between them. And there are great rivalries within Swiss football. In Zurich, where I'm from, the Zurich derby is between two teams that share a stadium. So when they play each other, there are scenes in Zurich. And that's actually divided along class lines. Like FCZ, which is the team I support, has a much more working class background, whereas GC, Grasshoppers Club Zurich, is the elite club. But when the national team plays, of course, that brings all the cantons together. I was wondering, actually, when I was listening to that interview, because I don't know what language they speak with the national team, and I would imagine, though I don't know, it's English.
Albanian.
Because business is often... Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, it might be English, possibly French, like more universal
I
ones,
think
right?
German is more likely than French, just because it's like more of the country speaks German.
You're probably right, though, about English, because most of the players play internationally.
Yeah.
And I will say we do hope that Pete's play comes to fruition, because it sounds really
Yes,
interesting.
I thought that sounded amazing. I was really excited to hear about the play about Albert Johannesson, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting.
I didn't know about that until the interview. That's not why.
No,
we got
I looked
Pete
into it
on.
after.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's not why I got
Yeah,
Pete on.
cool.
But that was a really.
Oh, he just dropped that in at the
He
end?
dropped that
That's
in at the
cool.
end, pretty much. He was like, "I have this to
Wow.
plug," and I was like, "Whoa, that's very relevant."
Yeah. Maybe if I don't know how far along the process it is, maybe we can drop ticket links in, or we can when it comes out.
Yeah, I think it's still in rewrites, still in approval. We'll keep people up to date.
Cool.
So yeah, let's bring it all together. We can close out. Just a couple quick questions. I mean, we talked about working class rivalries versus more affluent teams, but the World Cup always begs the question: who gets to be a fan? Not just of these national teams, but like when we talk about clubs, as we said, like Arsenal has fans all over Africa and Latin America. This World Cup, the tickets were so expensive. So
Yeah.
what did this say about who gets to be a fan, and what does that say about where the world's going? Because I know like concert tickets and everything just seems to cater just to the rich nowadays.
Well, that's true. This is more a problem in America than elsewhere.
For sure.
2 summers ago, I was working as a tour guide in Amsterdam, and Taylor Swift came for 3 nights and sold out the Johan Cruijff Arena, where Ajax play. And I was booked out the whole week. I've never seen the city busier, and one third to one half of all the tours I did were fans from the US and Canada who had come to see her because it was cheaper to come to Europe, stay in Amsterdam for a few days and see her here than it was to see her in North America. And that really, like the exorbitant cost of the tickets really did feel like an American stamp on the tournament. Even the idea, like the train journey from New York City to the stadium, which is normally like $18, was like $90 or something.
Well, me and Ike talked about that. It's usually $13.
Wow.
And it became 140 or something. I don't know what it became on the final day.
Yeah, that really was a dark sort of stain on the tournament, and was really where I think that question of politics and who gets to be a fan shone through. And hopefully that can be rectified in the future. I'm not particularly hopeful for it, the way things are going. And FIFA is certainly not an organization that cares about much other than money, but it's...
You'd think that the ticket prices would be an afterthought in terms of the actual profit margin, right? Like that they wouldn't care about that aspect, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think this tournament allowed people that opportunity, like you said, to reflect on allegiances and the narrative. I heard so many Americans who normally would be either apolitical or maybe even be conservative talking about how much they were supporting Iran this tournament because of all the hardship they're being put through as a team, because even they recognize, even if they nominally kind of supported war against Iran, that they didn't support a team in an international tournament being put at a disadvantage because of that.
Yeah.
And a highlight for me, I was out during one of the group games and we saw this big group of like 10 or 12 Persian grandmas. I don't know where anyone else in their families were, but they all decided we're meeting up at the bar. They didn't order any alcohol. They ordered like food and tea and stuff. And they like camped out front and center in this outdoor venue right in front of the big screen. And they were screaming with every pass. And you could just see how much this tournament meant to them, despite all the stuff their team was going through. So
amazing.
I think I heard the phrase, "Oh, it's just our leaders that hate each other," more times than I can count, because of all these Americans that I didn't expect to enjoy having the world here so much. I will say I went into the tournament really cynical, which kind of you can kind of hear like when I talked to Ike and stuff, which was more early on in the tournament. And I think it did kind of just make me feel good as an international citizen to see the USA in terms of its people actually doing something good, which I heard a lot of comments from visitors saying how much they enjoyed spending time in the US in this tournament, which the US has not had a lot of visitors in general, just due to the political situation. Yeah, I mean, we can leave it at that. Do you have any closing thoughts about the nature of this World Cup, and did your cynicism fade?
A little, and it always does a little bit throughout the World Cup, because at the end of the day, the World Cup, I mean, like Pete said, Pete wasn't that interested in the World Cup, and that's because he loves his club. loves Leeds United. And I think that although I tune in when you have the spectacle of these big international tournaments, because it is everywhere and you see it everywhere, at the end of the day, the reason that people love football, the reason that football is the world's most popular sport is because of its simplicity, right? Like you're just kicking a ball into a net, and that's sort of it, and anyone can play it. And this is a thought I had when I first started traveling a bit more broadly outside of Europe when I was in my late teens, and I realized that everywhere you went in the world, anywhere you go, you will see kids playing football. And that is something that really unites people along all sorts of lines. Is just everywhere you go, kids will be kicking a football about. And that's a really, really beautiful thing, and something that I do love about the sport, even if I'm not a sort of diehard fan in the way that a lot of people are. And I think the World Cup is a chance to remember that.
Football really is like the closest thing we have to a universal language. That's not just being poetic. That's kind of true, right? Like, just put the ball down and kick it at a kid, and they'll probably know what to do.
Yeah.
I think if we can carry on an idea that came up or a theme from these interviews, if there was a through line that we can, because I think this was a nice break from our usual topics. But if we can take one thing away with us as we go into serious topics again, do you think there's anything? What would it be?
I mean, I think it corroborates our claims that everything is political. I also think it reminds us that joy is important, and that people find ways to find that no matter how dire the circumstances are, and that we should celebrate that and enjoy it while we can.
And we won't be going straight into the hard stuff immediately, because I do believe next episode we are talking about a man with a bin on his head running for a parliament seat.
We are. We're talking about the by-election in Clacton upon Sea and Count Binface. I'm looking forward to it.
So stay tuned for that. Adam, you know this quote well. I had to end it with this one. I'm not even going to put it in the chat. I just want you to tell us what Pope John Paul II once said about football to close us out.
Of all the unimportant things, football is the most important.